Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod Sunday night show, the shit show. Happy Sunday. Hi, Pat.
Sundays where we have 75% of our shit together, usually at best.
Barely. That's being incredibly generous. We thought we were all set, and then all of a sudden 20 last minute things popped up, so we were scrambling a little bit, but we are here. Yes, Adria, I see your Moscow Mule drink, I'm assuming.
Excellent.
And hello everybody, for those of you who are drinking the alcohol, smoking the weed, doing whatever you're doing, cheers and welcome. Much needed self-medication.
Here.
How's
your world? We have Julia Doubleday joining us in just a second. She's backstage.
Yes, in just a second. We're a little late to all of the stuff, so we see you. We'll bring you on in just a second. I'm good. I'm not good, actually. It's horrible. It's horrible. I cannot close my eyes. This is gonna cheer everybody up. Welcome to the shit show, without seeing images of beheaded babies and limbless children. So I didn't sleep all night, and then I fell asleep for like 2 hours at 9 in the morning, and then just like, woo.
Well, that makes my dreams and losing sleep sound a little better, because I keep having dreams where all of a sudden I'm homeless in my dream. Everything's going along great, and then something happens and I blah 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 and I'm homeless.
It's like the adult version of you didn't do your homework, like with serious consequences.
Panic.
I mean,
so yeah, there's that.
It's like embarrassing even to say like how I'm being affected by images of what people are actually enduring, suffering because of our country. But I do think there's like just second or third hand trauma here from the state of our country and the state of the world, and anybody who's paying attention is furious and devastated.
I mean, there's losing your sleep, just thinking about it and how horrible it is. But there's also like, when it gets in your dreams, sometimes it's psychological, it's helplessness, learned helplessness. We all have learned helplessness because our whole country, the majority don't support this war. We want it to stop. We want to do everything we can to stop it. A lot of people feel the same about COVID, and we're getting nothing done on this stuff. So
and climate. It's like all of it. Yeah. We're just barreling through in a non-democracy. We're gonna try to find some joy, though, as we plow through all of this. So first, we want to thank everybody, our pup heroes and sheroes. Thank you guys all so much. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you. And what do you think? Should we just bring on our lovely friend of the show, Julia Doubleday? Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are good. It's so good to see you. I think your hair has grown a foot since the last time we had you on. Is that possible?
It may have. Yeah, it may have. I have not gotten it cut in a while.
I love it. Me neither. I love that. Love it. How are you? Welcome.
I'm good. I've been better. I've been having, you won't believe it, but I've been having long COVID issues. I'm in my long COVID is real bitch t-shirt, which I got from Berlin Buyers Club. So shout out to them. If you want to check them out, they're like a great artist collective. They're not really making money off of it. They're just like donating it to research, and they make a lot of really cool t-shirts.
It's called Berlin
Buyers Club, and the designs are by this woman, Sophie, who is also suffering from long COVID, like very severe long COVID, and is kind of like struggling financially. So I always want to shout out her.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but you said you're doing well, but you are currently still struggling with long COVID.
So it's not haha funny, but I started the gauntlet over a year before I'd ever had COVID. I just started it because I was like, oh, this is like a fucked up thing that's happening, and it's just not sustainable, the rate at which everyone's getting infected. I will say that because I have underlying health issues, and specifically my underlying health issues put me at high risk for long COVID, I was like, I really can't mess with this virus.
Right.
I finally got it last November. And since then, I've really been just resting. I ended up losing my job in January. I think partially just because I couldn't really work much anymore. My main symptom after my infection in November, and maybe this will be helpful for if people have noticed this since their COVID infection, since we're getting so little education about the things that can happen to you after COVID, I started to get these very, very disruptive, awful migraines that just like go on forever and ever and ever. And it was, very disruptive to my ability to work, and also just extreme fatigue. And I've mostly just been trying to rest. Finally, in the last couple of months, I started trying to reintroduce my body to like doing a little bit more. So starting to leave the apartment and go on walks. And then just in the last month, I've really been in what is called kind of in the long COVID community, a crash, where I really couldn't leave the apartment or do anything or even like walk downstairs to get a package or anything. So I was not doing well. I am doing better, which I'm very excited about. So I'm excited to be here tonight.
Thank you. Yeah.
But it's kind of been very frustrating that, I've been advocating for so long and working so hard to try not to get this virus, and still, in spite of everything, in spite of all the measures that I took, it's really just a reminder that you really can try very, very hard not to get COVID. But if there's not a government level response, if there's not actual institutional public health, disabled people, vulnerable people, anybody cannot by themselves stay safe from COVID. That's just not how public health works. You cannot, you do you, out of a global pandemic. Out of a public health crisis.
Yeah. But Julia, if masks work, how did you get COVID? This is what people will say. This is the.
Well, I'll tell you exactly how I got COVID. I got it from my boyfriend. So he was in my house, and I was, around him without a mask. And actually, so we're long distance, and he got into town. I gave him a test, but honestly, like, my protocols have changed since then. They've gotten even stricter. Like, you have to just keep getting stricter and stricter. And I had given him a test the first day that he was here, and like 2 days later, I should have kept testing him, and I just sort of was having fun and didn't like think about it. 2 days later, he's like, "Oh, I'm like feeling a little scratch in my throat. Like, we really should have done another test," and tested him, and he was already super positive, and I was already exposed. I was very sick. I will say that even with Paxlovid, I got rebound. I was positive for like 18 days or something. I was like, unsurprisingly, got like a very severe case, and just never have fully recovered. So
I'm so sorry. Where was he? Had he had to fly, or how did he get?
He was flying, and he does a lot of COVID safety now. But he had been to like a work event where he hadn't been wearing a mask at that, and so and I mean, that's the other thing, is that when people say, well, you do you can make adjustments for how safe that you want to be, and I think people, they don't think about it for more than 30 seconds, because it's like, you have to interact with other human beings. So the
only way to make you work is to totally self-isolate for your
right.
Life.
I mean,
that's it.
People live with other people. People interact with other people. People have spouses, children that go to school. I mean, not only do they have children that go to school, but I know parents who the school is like threatening them that like they're going to try to get their kids taken away because this is abusive, that they want their kids wearing a mask. It's like, it's just so impossible to try and create like a bubble away from society. And actually, so a few of the graphs that I sent over to you guys were to try to convey the impossibility of and sorry, I actually want to stop and say, I don't want to give people the impression that it's just completely impossible and hopeless and you shouldn't try not to get COVID, because I actually went so many years without getting it, and my hope is that I will not get it again. And in that story I told about me getting COVID, I did make mistakes and things that I would do differently. And so, two things can be true. One thing that's true is that it's completely unfair And you have to have a lot of, to invest a lot of time and money to be able to avoid COVID. All of that is true. And it's all.
Oops.
Oh.
Wait, you
You're
lagged
back.
just a little bit.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
back though. Yeah.
But it can
Pick
also
up at
be,
the end.
but
It's also true. Oh,
yeah. And it's also true that we should be doing what we can to try not to spread it in our communities. The other thing that's true is that it's one of those things where it's a, it builds momentum. The more people that are doing it, the easier it gets. So when I say like, oh, it's really hard, I now have like 5, 6, 7, 8 friends that are doing COVID safety. Guess how much easier it is when I want to hang out with people. If I know 3 people that have been masking all week, now it's a much lower anxiety thing to figure out how we can hang out together safely than it would be if like, well, I went to my in-laws' house and they had a baby there and I didn't wear a mask. And, you know, like, it just,
which is also why mandates are so important, because it takes away the burden of people feeling like my husband and I are always the only maskers.
Yeah.
And everybody I know who says that they're safe, like, and then you see pictures of them, you know, indoors without a mask in crowds, and like,
I think communication is really important. So like, I would almost liken it to just the way that in a sexual relationship, you have to sort of like really hammer out, like, what are my boundaries? And like, are we testing XYZ? Like, when I'm talking to somebody about what is your COVID safety, like, it's very explicit. It's not like, oh, are you COVID safe? It's like, hey, so I wear a KN95 mask indoors. Like, is that what you do? You know, like, what do you do during the week? Because
and
sometimes
don't eat. Like, then they'll be like, because even there though, I do feel like, unless like you're right, you have to be so detailed. But people will say that, and then they'll be like, well, I was at a restaurant and I was far away from other people and I had to eat. You know, it's like, I wore the mask when I got inside and then took it off. You know, like, it's like, it's very difficult because everybody has a very different idea of what it means to mask indoors, apparently.
Well, one of the big issues is just that we're catching people up on like 4 years of information that they don't have. So a lot of times if someone says like, oh, I was COVID safe, their conception of what COVID safe is based on this like droplet transmission model that is really outdated. That is not correct. So
the flip side of that. And go ahead, Pat. Sorry, I keep talking.
Well, I was just going to say, I ran into that with my own family last week, 2 weeks ago, where we were all going to get together. My parents are in their 80s, and my brother has 2 high school level kids. One in college, one in high school. But anyway, one of the kids had just had COVID 4 days ago, and they were all going to come over, and they're like, well, he's fine now. And I think so many people don't realize the contagious level on average is what, 2 weeks or so is the median number.
One of the reasons people don't realize that is because they changed the isolation guidelines so many times. And every single time they changed, it was really based on economics. And as you guys know, the first time those guidelines changed was because of the CEO of Delta. And I think that's such a telling anecdote about who has been running this pandemic response. So, and why has the pandemic response evolved the way it has? So when they were purely looking at the science, it was like 2 weeks is a good amount of time to be sure that that person's not going to be contagious anymore. And then they reduced it to 10 days because 2 weeks was so long. And then the Delta CEO, this is really just the crux of everything. Why the response was never adequate, why the virus was never controlled. The CEO of Delta was like, the workers are not at work and it's too hard for the business to run profitably. And he wrote this letter to the CDC and said, I think like more like 5 days would be like more reasonable. And the CDC was like, yeah, sure. And that's how we got the 5-day quarantine. And now even like pro science, like liberals are like, well, it's like a 5-day quarantine. And it's like, that number did not come from any study. There's never been any study that showed there's any relationship between like 5 days and infectiousness. And in fact, 2/3 of people in one study were still contagious beyond 5 days. And actually, one of my friends who just had it, we were like testing him every day. He had very mild symptoms. He had like a headache and kind of achiness. That was kind of it. He was contagious until day 9. And that's like somebody that I'm sure like might not have even tested if he was just not, you know, kind of in my like COVID world.
Yeah.
But I wonder how many people are actually testing out, you know, before they go back to work.
Well, and now they say
I would
one
venture
day,
it's like
and if
10%.
you don't have a fever. Yeah.
Right. Well, and even, you know, so Biden obviously just had COVID. When he exited quarantine, they said that he had never had a fever, which means that according to his CDC's own guidelines, he never should have been in isolation. So why was he in isolation? I mean, why are there different rules for Biden than for everybody else?
Although he didn't mask. In his defense, he didn't mask, you know, when he found out that he had COVID. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it is truly shameful. We all got it, or 3 of us got it. My older son, who was at college, got it when he went to college. But my younger son, who's a senior in high school now, at the beginning of the year said he just couldn't be the only masker once again for the 4th year in a row going into his senior year. And you know, it's really hard because I understand that there's no plan. There's no plan. And so at a certain point, like, you know, so the very first weekend of high school, you went to a party, they all passed a joint around or whatever, and got us all infected. And I had a worst case, but all 3 of us, even my husband, who was like down for one day. I mean, we isolated in the house, we wore masks, all that kind of stuff, but none of us tested negative for 12 days.
But honestly, I don't think you do know that's worst case because nobody is really checking. It's like if we were actually testing out of quarantine, I think what we would find is much more similar to that 10 to 14 days. That was the original guideline.
Yeah.
The thing is, it wouldn't be so disruptive to the economy if we did have good containment measures because everybody wouldn't be getting it all the time. The issue is that everyone's getting it all the time. So once the decision was made that we're not going to control it, we're not going to contain it, it just became, well, then people can't test and people can't know and we can't talk about it. And now that's the official policy. So you better not fucking say the word COVID.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then, I mean, if you're thinking long term for the economy, disabling millions of workers is really going to devastate.
Don't get me started. I mean, this is just climate change 2.0. Yeah. Why don't you put up the image image A and image B, I think are the 2 that show what's going on with disability.
1 second. Yeah. So we're both doing it.
Okay, so here we go. Here's image A. This is what is happening with disability in this country. And so this is the civilian labor force, disability ages 16 and over. Right here, you can see where 2020 hits. And, you know, you see people saying, well, I don't, you know, everyone must be exaggerating. It can't be disabling people that much because I don't see any mass disabling event. And it's like, yes, it is very, very apparent in all of the data. So you're not looking. And what's bizarre to me is the way they talk about it is so similar to Republicans, you know, in 2020 is like, I don't like, where are these dead bodies? COVID isn't real. And it's like, I don't know. Did you look at the data that showed that hundreds of thousands of people died in a few months? Like it's the same fucking
climate
thing.
change is real. Why is it cold today?
Right. Exactly. And and it's the same kind of arguments. It's like, well, I don't think any of my friends have long COVID. And let me talk about that for a second as well. There's a few reasons why you may feel that you do not know people who have long COVID. The first is if you are an upper middle class young white person, you are in the demographic that is the least likely to have long COVID. So that's number 1. But number 2 is you don't know what the fuck long COVID is. So if you know people who in the last few years have started to develop a wide array of health problems, like they got shingles and they're not over the age of 65. They have a new autoimmune disorder that they randomly developed. They have migraines now, like me, that they never had before. They have diabetes.
Allergies all the time.
No, actually, but like COVID dysregulates the immune system and can bring on new allergic reactions or more severe allergies. There's all kinds of things that COVID can be doing. A new heart condition. Do you know someone young who had a stroke or a heart attack randomly? All of those things are manifestations of long COVID. So, you say you don't know anybody who has long COVID, and then you know all of these people. I know like 4 young people who have gout now. Like, I didn't know anybody who had gout before.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know somebody with every condition you mentioned before gout. Like young people. And my boss probably has long COVID.
Hair falling out, teeth falling out, like all kinds of stuff falls under the umbrella of long COVID, because what long COVID actually is, and the way they study it, and the reason it is so common in these studies, is what they're doing is they're looking at a population of people that had COVID and did not have COVID, and they're looking at what is the controlling for other variables, how much more common are these health conditions?
Right.
And they're finding that COVID increases your risk for a lot of different health conditions.
Cancer, like young people getting cancer.
So cancer, I try to be a little more cautious about the cancer stuff, because when it comes to things like the cardiac arrests and the strokes, the kidney disease, the diabetes, the autoimmune disorders, all of this is proven. It's like very detailed papers showing that this is happening. With cancer, what we have is mechanisms. So we know the mechanisms by which COVID cells may be leading to cancer down the road, but there's a lot that we still don't know. So I try to be conservative in what I talk about, so that people don't say, oh my gosh, these crazy people think that everything is COVID.
Yeah.
That being said, there was a big piece, in the Washington Post recently where they talked to cancer doctors, and they were saying, yes, we are seeing a lot more of these cancers, and it's concerning. And here are some of the mechanisms that we think are causing it.
Right.
So I do try to be more circumspect about it.
Yeah.
And I do try to draw a clear line and say, yes, we know that having COVID gives you this like much higher risk of having a heart attack within the next 6 weeks. Cancer is a much more complicated process, and we're probably not going to know much more about it for 5 or 10 more years.
Right.
But we know that there are mechanisms that are very concerning.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the disability thing and the economy, which, it does puzzle me. I don't understand it when, Larry Summers, I hate him so much. Summers, like 6 months ago or something said, there is no amount of money that would be too much to throw at long COVID. It is going to have an enormous impact on our economy. He is one of the most disgusting, right-wingy capitalist lib kind of people in the world, when he is sounding the alarm. And then we just it was after that they went down to the 1 day of isolation. It was after that Ashish Shah said that people who mask are on the fringe, I don't know.
I think the thing is that capitalism is not being driven by like a smart operator, like a single operator. Like it's a machine, but it's a dumb machine. In other words, like the machine just does what it's going to do, and no one is really in charge of it. So like, that's why even with climate, like there are a lot of very wealthy people that are concerned about what's happening, but there's not really a mechanism to turn the machine off. Like all it can really do is input resources and output money. And so you kind of have to like use the mechanisms and incentives of the machine to try to turn it, but that's a very long, slow process, and potentially we're all going to die first.
I mean, what really would happen is more wealthy, powerful people have to get long COVID.
I think so. I mean, it's
Fetterman. No, I'm kidding.
Fetterman, I mean, already has long COVID. I mean, he had a stroke. Strokes are quite common after COVID. He actually currently has COVID, which is very bad. That's a very bad thing to have happen to you after you've had a stroke. I don't know if he knows that. I don't know if he cares. I mean, he's a great example of like these people who are within the machine can't even represent themselves. Like this is sort of what I wrote about Biden in my article, which is that the machine is still, everyone thinks of Joe Biden as like, I even saw it when he was going on TV being like, the elites want me out. And it was like, well, you're the elite, you're the president. But it's like, well, he's put there by donors, and now he's being taken out by donors.
Right.
Like politicians are still ultimately the employees
Yeah.
of the donor class.
He was put there by
And-
COVID, and he's being taken out by COVID.
Yeah.
It's-
and he
this is the
yes.
your
Oh
latest
yes.
article. Yeah.
There he is. There he is taking his mask off. I had to use that photo of
Yeah.
him.
That was the first time he got COVID, right? Where he goes and talks to everybody, or was this even just this time?
I think
Because
that was
the first time, remember, he makes a joke to the whole crowd, like, "Oh, don't let them know."
No.
I'm not
That
wearing it."
that wasn't even when he had COVID. That was when Jill had COVID.
Ah.
So he had a known exposure. They told him to wear a mask, and he like took it off and was like, "Don't tell everyone I took my mask off." I forget what I was saying about this.
That he is just an employee of the donor class.
He's an employee of the donor class, and he ultimately served his function as a piece of propaganda that COVID is over by being a 90-year-old man on the verge of death, going out in public, risking his life by acting like COVID is over, not wearing a mask, and ultimately, got COVID at a point in his campaign where it was very important for him to look young and healthy and spry, had to drop out.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like the people that hired him and the people that he gave everything for ultimately saw him as just as disposable as the rest of us. Like these people don't care about you, Joe. They don't care about you, John Fetterman. They don't care about any of you. Like none of us matter.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, I can put it back on the screen, but what is the title of your article? It was in there, but I forget.
Oh, it was
here, I'll just show
Joe.
it again.
I think it was Biden's COVID hubris. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hubris is the nail in his re-election coffin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, since Biden got elected, 800,000 people have died of COVID since Biden got elected. But his team keeps tweeting this weird stuff that seemed to sort of imply that 1 million people died of COVID under Trump, which is not true. 400,000.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Because this just came out 2 days ago, or yesterday. Stricter COVID rules could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. There's Mehdi Hassan, who's been one of the few people with a big show, and he used to be obviously on MSNBC, who was actually, COVID conscious. But he's also putting the 1 million deaths on Trump. And like, we know that this is the rate, right? Like,
I think that he's saying,
yeah,
I think that he's saying of those 400,000, 250,000 could have been, maybe I'm misreading it. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know, because here's the thing. Also like the Kamala headquarters keep saying 1 million people died. Sorry. Over 1 million Americans died, and he told us to inject.
Oh, that's
bleach.
a lie. Yeah, that's a lie. Okay, let me talk about this then. Let me talk about this. So 400,000 Americans died of COVID under Trump.
Right.
And the night before Biden and Kamala were inaugurated, they did a little crocodile tear ceremony on the National Mall where they lit 400 candles to honor 400,000 dead. And they were like, boo fucking who, we'll never get over this. This is the most people that ever died. And like, they didn't give their lives for nothing. We'll never stop honoring them. And since then, twice as many people have died of COVID, and they never have mentioned them. They never mentioned them. There's not 800 fucking candles down at the mall right now. There's 0 candles because they want 0 people to talk about them.
Right.
And it's disgusting to me. It's really disgusting to me. And what's even worse is that, obviously they've been in office for longer, so it's not the same rate. But what's even worse is that now, not only will they not mention these 800,000 Americans that they've killed with their policy, but they're kind of just like trying to like put them on Trump. They're like, over 1 million people died.
Well, and I do want to say
it's
that
not true.
it was at the same rate for the same amount of time. Okay, and that was with the vaccine at the first year.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see this point where the death finally slow down here after February 2022. Do you understand why these deaths finally slowed down? It's because everyone was finally exposed. It's because let it rip ended. It's not because of the vaccines. The vaccines had already been out for over a year. It's because the thing that Trump was threatening to do, we had finally done it, and it was finally over. All of the most vulnerable people were dead. That's when the deaths stopped. It's when let it rip ended. Oh, it just drives me crazy.
Well, and also, you know, a study just came out that says there was some immunity put on people who had the infection through Delta. But once Omicron came, there was almost no, if you had been previously infected, you had very little extra immunity from that. And at that point, all the masks were gone because we were all breathing the sweet, sweet, fresh air. Nobody, like, isolation had been down to 5 days. There's no more sick pay. There are no more OSHA protections. There's no more free, like, some tests maybe, but like people were thrown off Medicaid. Like
Omicron wave 1 was a very deadly wave with hundreds of thousands of people who died. And 40% of them were vaccinated. And while this was going on, both Biden and Kamala got on TV and said only unvaccinated people were dying. And that was a lie. And a lot of vaccinated people died because they did that. And
100%.
A lot of vaccinated people continue to die because they continue to imply that you cannot die if you're vaccinated. Now, I'm very pro-vaccine. I have every fucking vaccine and I'll keep getting them. And one of the reasons I will keep getting them, well, there's two reasons I'll keep getting them. The first one is, I think everybody should know this about the vaccines. These are two of the major pieces of information that they do not tell you about vaccines because they want you to believe that your one vaccine you got in 2021 is enough to protect you forever and it made COVID go away forever. And that's just not true.
Right.
The first piece of information you should know about these vaccines is that they peak in efficacy the 3rd month after you got them. After that, their efficacy declines continuously. Right. So if you got vaccinated 3 years ago, it's not doing shit anymore. It does not do anything anymore. Okay. So you're essentially unvaccinated. So let's start there. The only protection you have is from your most recent infection. You have some immune memory from the last time you got infected, but that's a terrible way to protect the population. It means that your wall of herd immunity is being maintained through constant illness, disability, death, and harm to the population. It's not a public health strategy. So that's one. The second reason you need to get vaccinated as often as you can is that COVID, which we did not realize that this would happen back in 2021, COVID is highly, highly immune evasive. It mutates really, really fast. So that's why, you know how on TV you're always hearing about all these new variants? Oh, like the flirt variant, which actually isn't a variant. It's a group of variants. But so right now we have KP1 and KP2, which are flirt variants. And then we have KP3. And we also have LB1. And in the winter, we had JN1. And the vaccine we have right now is for XBB. Now, XBB was the predominant variant, not last winter, the winter before, because our vaccine technology is just not fast enough to keep up with how fast COVID is mutating. So it's great if you got the most recent vaccine. It is a vaccine for the XBB variant, which was most dominant in winter of 2022. The COVID that is circulating now is like a really distant grandchild of what you got vaccinated against. So that's why yes, it's good to get vaccinated, but it's not enough to protect the population from this circulating virus, which is actually genetically very different from the virus that you're vaccinated against.
Which is why when Trump was president and said he was going to do Operation Warp Speed for vaccines, scientists who were being honest at the time said, we cannot have a vaccine-only approach. That's great, but we need the Swiss cheese model. And then
some of them did. I mean,
but even the ones who did, some of them continue to be, stick to their true science.
Yeah.
But a lot of them switched. And as you're saying, we're just like, well, vaccines are enough. Enjoy.
I think what you'll find is that it's just like with climate, which is that you'll find people across the political spectrum, scientists, who will say a lot of different things, and the media will choose to elevate the ones that are more optimistic, and they'll choose to ignore the ones that are more pessimistic.
Right.
So there were scientists in 2021 saying this vaccine is not enough to end the pandemic. And what's going to happen is that if you rely only on the vaccine, and if you get rid of masks, and if you allow it to continue to spread at such a high rate, you're going to see this really rapid mutation around vaccine protection. You're going to start to see vaccine resistance and new variants that are resistant to the immunity from both the vaccine and from infections, which would be bad. But instead of elevating people who are saying that, the media found scientists that were saying, once you get this vaccine, you're good for life and you can go back to normal. And people wanted to believe it, so they did. And when it didn't turn out to be true, and it became really obvious that it wasn't true, because we all started getting sick, I think people just psychologically couldn't handle it. Like, they could not handle the idea of going back to the pandemic. So they just keep doubling down on like, it's over, it's over, it's over. I mean, I want you guys to go back mentally to right after the vaccine came out. I don't know how many people remember this, but there actually was a point at which Rochelle Walensky went on TV and said that if you're vaccinated, you won't catch COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And before we get into, oh, that's a lie, she was lying, the reason she said that, it was premature, but it was based on preliminary data that came out of some, it essentially was true based on preliminary data that was interpreted very, very optimistically. Right. And it was before COVID had the chance to mutate. And those vaccines were really, really, really effective very early on. It's just that we abused the fuck out of them, and COVID is just too smart for us. Yeah. So that happened, but that summer you may remember hearing breakthrough infections are extraordinarily rare. Do you guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
Breakthrough infections are extraordinarily rare. I heard
and
that
kids
it was
won't
like
get it. Yeah.
It was like a refrain. Breakthrough infections are extraordinarily rare. And I heard it so often that every time I heard about a breakthrough infection, I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
So I think as the goalposts move to like, they're not rare, and now all of a sudden I am going to get it, but I'm only going to get it once. And now all of a sudden I'm going to get it more than once, but it's mild. And now all of a sudden maybe it won't be mild.
It's helping my immunity.
But it's
like, I keep like, when does that immunity kick in? You've had it like 8 times now. Yeah.
Now all of a sudden maybe some people are going to get disabled, but hopefully it's not me. It's like all through this, I just think people have been like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
It's really easy to rationalize everything, and you've got parents with the guilt of their kids. They can't do anything about their kids. They can't protect, your whole job as a parent is to protect your kid. And then, at some point you also have had COVID and didn't die. So then you add that to it like, oh, well, I didn't die. It's easy to say, well, it's kind of just the flu because I didn't die.
But also it was a concerted effort by the Biden administration and the CD, Rochelle Walensky, Fauci, Leanna Wen, Lennart, the New York Times, like all of these people to vilify and make fringe doing anything that prevented people from feeling like they had returned to normal and the economy was back up and running. Because even now, when they ever do the polls, but all through that, when they were taking polls, even in red states, a majority of people said, we want to know when there are spikes because we want those protections and precautions to come back. It was like reverse engineered. And so then after you hear it enough from the people who are supposed to be your public health watchers and your government who's supposed to be protecting you, then people are like, oh, it's over now. But like, yeah.
And I think it's important to point out that, yes, you're right. It was very top down and it was really shoved down people's throats. Like, this is weird. This is weird. This is bad. This is bad. But all of the whole narrative and the talking points, it all came from really far right libertarian think tanks. So like the Biden administration was very lucky to have like just waiting for them all ready to go, like it was all the same talking points, like right away. Like when they decided to pivot, Dave Leonhardt, exactly who you're talking about, the New York Times, I quoted some of the stuff he was saying in Omicron when they decided to turn on any kind of, you know, NPI, not, you know, anything that wasn't the vaccine. It's very subtle, like the language shift, but they started saying stuff like risk tolerance, and they started saying, well, so I wanted to keep in mind the context of what's happening while he's saying this. This is one of the deadliest waves of the pandemic. So while he's saying this, thousands of Americans are dying every day. And nearly half of them are vaccinated. Yep. And while in this column, he says, you know, red state, you know, Republicans seem to have a higher risk tolerance, and there's no right or wrong. It's just that some people can tolerate more risk. And essentially what that wording is saying is that
be brave.
Some people are pussies.
Yeah.
Some people are cowards. Some people just don't have balls like I do, which is essentially the right-wing argument from the very beginning, you know, was that you guys aren't really courageous like me, who goes out and gets diseases, which is like a very absurd argument. It doesn't have anything to do with public health. It doesn't have anything to do with like the argument around disease. But now you have in the New York Times, someone saying, some people just have a different risk tolerance, which is like, no, that's not how we talk about spreading disease.
Yeah. And they love the diapers on the face thing, but then Trump comes out and they all wear little ear bandages. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you people?
Well, and also, you know, I do want to say, yes, it started as, you know, the Brookstone Institute and all of these like disgusting right wingers and the Koch brothers and the Vinay Prasads and all of that, Monica Gandhi. But you know, when Biden brings in Zients as his COVID czar, right? Like, then it really doesn't, like, that's where, you know, when I talk to sort of my normie Dem friends, it's really hard for them to understand that Democrats are basically, because they're all serving capital, it's all right wing. They just might, you know, say
it's like
thoughts and prayers and like you know, it's trans flag or something, but like,
you know, that like scene in Devil Wears Prada where she like talks about the fashion, like going through all the catalogs or whatever and ending up in the bargain bin. It's like that. It's like, you know, it had to come from whatever fucking Heritage Foundation, but now it's like these fucking leftist podcast hosts on Twitter telling me I'm living in fear. I'm like, this is not from you. A billionaire had to spend so much money to get you to call a public health intervention living in fear. Imagine calling water purification living in fear of cholera. This is so bonkers. Like, bro, use your head.
Well, and it's the biggest workers' rights issue of our lifetime. And they're sitting here, it's right in their face, and these alleged leftists that want communism are
I know, it's so sad.
They won't even put a mask on.
Roll the image B. This is the other this is the same shit. So look at this. This is from the UK. It's the exact same shit we're seeing in the US. So 1 in 15 people of working age are now economically inactive from March. 4 years. We see this massive rise in people who are long-term sick. And what I want to talk about in the UK, what we're seeing, which is so just staggeringly absurd, is that they have actually noticed that this is happening. And what the Labour Party, well, the Tories were talking about it, and now the Labour Party is also talking about it, is we need to get these long-term sick people back to work, but not in the sense of we need to get them healthy again. They're just like, we need to kick them off benefits. Like they need to fucking be forced back in the office. And like, this is where, I mean, across the board, all of this is intersecting with so many different, you know, equity issues. But it's like the state is forcibly sickening you. It's forcibly disabling you. And the next thing it's going to do is kick you the fuck off benefits, because guess what? It's not going to be able to support all of these people it disables. It's not going to want to.
And that's where the cop cities come in, because we're going to be protesting that shit.
Gosh, I know. It's just.
It really is all intersectional, right? Like the same people who are saying Biden got, you know, he handled a once in a lifetime global pandemic. It's over, as he is ending his run because of COVID, like ostensibly. Obviously, there are a million other reasons, but like that was, as you wrote, like the final nail in the coffin. But they'll say the same thing, like, oh, Kamala's going to be better on genocide, even though she's got a much sterner tone, or, you know, it's like they keep saying, don't believe your lying eyes.
Unfortunately, there is no candidate out there fighting for COVID protections. I mean, the best candidate in the U.S., in my opinion, is Jill Stein, and she's shitty on COVID too.
It honestly feels like it just feels like the Twilight Zone to me. It's like doesn't. They're not in reality. I mean, I also just wrote an essay about this feeling of unreality, and like one of the things I wrote about is like, even the narrative that they're trying to sell us, which is that, well, we're in a different place, and like everyone is just doing their risk assessment every morning. They're waking up and they're doing their risk assessment, and they're saying, here's my risk factors and here are the tools I'm going to use. That's not fucking happening. It's not fucking happening. Like,
there are no tools anymore.
I'm sorry,
by the way.
do you go in an old folks home and you see them all wearing their masks because they're high risk and those are the tools? No. Nobody. Everybody's acting like there's no COVID. No one has any risks. And there's no tools. That's called denial. You are all in denial. There is a massive pandemic. 1 in 40 people have COVID right now. A large amount of people who get this virus go on to become long-term disabled. And your plan is to get it once or twice a year. You're in denial.
I mean, this is what it looks. Oh, sorry, I'm covering all of us, but this is the map right now. And you know, we were joking, Pat and I, when they went from like the red and everything, because red's scary and hot, and green is cool. Well, now it's like dark black green for most of the map. Like they're gonna have to come up with a new color because it's not working.
I mean, we're in a massive wave in the middle of summer, which, by the way, that was another thing they lied about. They said that COVID was going to become seasonal.
Which maybe wasn't true, though, because in places like in Brazil, they were having waves at the same time we were, but that was their summer. So we like all the things they lied about, there was direct conflict with at the time.
In another case of sort of continually massaging what they have said, Ashish Jha had a tweet recently where he said, oh, Biden tested positive. We're in a typical summer wave. I'm like, I'm sorry, motherfucker. A typical what wave?
Yeah.
Summer wave? I thought this was a seasonal virus. So now
hot
it's a typical
COVID summer.
It's another typical southern wave. Actually, I want to show you another couple of graphs I sent.
Yeah, tell me, because I've
the wastewater. There's two wastewater. One is
okay. So this. Oh boy. Okay, so it's sort of small.
Okay, wait.
Sorry, but
So let me show you. So this is COVID a couple weeks ago. So before we click off of it, I want you to look at the y-axis. So see how it goes up to 500.
That's the vertical for those of you who are not.
And see how it's high.
Yeah.
500. Okay, now go to the flu one.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's low. Where's the y-axis on flu?
Yeah.
What does it say?
I mean, it's hard. Some of us need readers, Julia, but it's very low.
It says 30.
Yeah.
So it's not just that looking at these two graphs side by side, flu is down here. It's that the high is like 10 times, under 10 times lower than the high on COVID. So like what you need to understand is that even when we're in a COVID lull, we're still barely below peak flu season peak. Like, do you get what I'm saying? So like sometimes people are like, well, you're not going to get COVID just because you leave the house. Yes, you motherfucking are. Like,
also because let's look at that y-axis for the flu. It's going up in increments of 5.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
On COVID, whoops,
it's 100.
I just froze. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Pat, take it from here.
Did you freeze?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, she
Dang it.
froze.
All right.
It's perfect you froze because we need a quick little timeline cleanse or something like that. So
all right, I'll be back. Love y'all.
Let's check in with comedian Kyle Kinane.
I will say this, politically speaking, I will say this. I think that the last 8 years in this country has really ruined the president's been kidnapped genre of action movie. I will say that it has deflated my enthusiasm. Man, that was a fun movie 10 years ago. That was fun. Oh, you'd go right to the cinema on Friday. The president's been kidnapped. Oh no, who's gonna save him? Channing Tatum? I hope his shirt doesn't come off. We were excited for those. You can't make that movie now. That movie does not have the steam it once held. The president's been kidnapped. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not good out there. People aren't happy, man. Inflation's out of control. Well, what are the kidnappers asking for? Healthcare? Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'll watch it, but I'm not rooting for who you want me to root for.
I'm back. Hey, Julia, I'm looking at the time and I realize we only have you for a couple more minutes. So I want to make sure we get to the graphs or graphics that you still wanted to address.
Let's see. Okay, probably the last thing.
There's 2 more that we haven't looked at yet. One is the viral persistence of T cell activation, and the other one is the accelerated brain.
No. We don't need to look at those. Let's just look at see current COVID levels, because those 2 are like a whole other freaking thing. Okay. I just wanted to show you this because this is like just all pandemic COVID levels. Because I was just going on a rant on how when medically vulnerable people say like, oh, it's hard for us to leave the house or we're going to get COVID, this is what we're talking about. So if you look see this sort of like blue nadir level where it's like 152,000 COVID cases a day, a little higher than that is where you would be at like peak flu season. So like as likely as it is that you'd get flu at peak flu season is like how likely you are to get COVID when it's the lowest level. So like most of the time it's really way more likely you're going to get COVID. And
you would much rather have the flu than COVID.
I would much rather have the flu than COVID. But the other thing I want to say about this chart, which I think is really, 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 really important. During the Delta wave in November 2021, so if you can see it on this graph, it's right before the gigantic wave that goes off the screen. Fauci gave an interview and people were getting really nervous because it was the first time since the vaccines that COVID had spiked again. And they were all sort of still playing it off as like, this is a one-off thing. It's like weird, but it's gonna pass. And Fauci was asked, they said like, well, here's how many cases we're having a day. Fauci was asked, how many cases a day should we have before we can kind of go back to normal, stop wearing masks? And Fauci said, we should have under 10,000 cases a day, and then we can go back to normal and we can stop wearing masks. That was 3 years ago. We have never had one single day since then where we had under 10,000 new COVID cases a day. Not only that, we have never had one single day since then where we have had under 100,000 new COVID cases a day in America. So 10 times higher than what Fauci predicted would be a reasonable level at which to take off our masks. So when I say that this is not a reasonable way to live with COVID, I am not just using my own standard. I am using the standard of the Biden administration. This is not what they predicted would happen. It is not what herd immunity would look like. They are lying to you. This is not what we were told would happen. We were not told that we would get COVID twice a year, and we were not told about the long-term health effects of repeatedly being infected with COVID, and you should not accept it.
Yeah, this is how they amended it. This is only 25 seconds, but this is how they changed it. They wanted to shift focus a little bit.
But I doubt very seriously whether you're going to see the hospital and death surge that we've seen in the past, even if we get a surge of infections, because there's enough fundamental community level protection that even though you'll find the vulnerable will fall by the wayside, they'll get infected, they'll get hospitalized, and some will die. It's not going to be the tsunami of cases that we've seen.
So awful.
And now, and again, this is the same thing that, Dems are doing now is they're talking about Trump, who is disgusting, repellent, horrible. The way he talked about his disabled nephew, gross. But like, that's that's across both administrations.
Yep.
If you want the economy, it's a sacrifice you'll have to make, but it's worth it to me.
But right. I wish, not to bring it back to electoral politics, but like there's such an opportunity for like Jill Stein to come out and at least make the case and make people aware of exactly what you said was the easiest way to do it. Point out what Biden's administration said we needed to do to be safe and we're not safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, what Fauci...
Kudos, I do want to say kudos to the SCP party because they are actually COVID conscious folks out there being good. So
100%, they are the best, and their writing on the World Socialist website is fantastic also. But yeah, they're the only ones who are actually.
And I do want to say what Fauci did so quickly and so effectively, the propaganda technique he used in that clip was to break solidarity. So he really, really quickly and effectively divided people up into a population that is going to be inevitably harmed and killed by COVID and the population of everyone else that's normal. And he invited you to think of yourself as the population that's normal. And anybody watching is not going to conceptualize themselves as being in the population that's going to die. And nobody could know if they're going to be in the population that's going to die. But that's why you don't see older people or people with cancer or people who are vulnerable like Joe Biden or John Fetterman walking around with masks, because the vulnerable are automatically in our head conceptualized as an other that deserve to die, that deserve to fall by the wayside. And that is so contrary to what we as socialists believe. If we believe in solidarity, if we believe that it's all of us or none of us. So that's a really dangerous thing.
Sorry, I disagree. Fetterman can go.
Yeah, no, they absolutely did that. And I think, again, at the beginning, I think that the messaging actually was much clearer. They talked about your bubbles and, just because you want this person in your bubble, you have to know everybody in that person's bubble and everyone in the, or who has comorbidities, 75% of the whole country or whatever. Or once you've had COVID once, you're likely to be somebody who now has some sort of you might fall into
automatically high risk.
Yeah. So it all just changed once Biden came in and they sort of like manufactured the social end to a pandemic that persists. Like it's still here. The World Health Organization just yesterday or today put out new travel advisories. Yeah, it's horrible. Not ending on the best note or a happy high note, but we are so grateful for you coming on again and sharing your incredible knowledge. And the way you write is so powerful. And everyone should definitely please follow Julia. Why don't you tell people where they can find you, please?
Thanks so much. Yes. You can check out my Substack at www.thegauntlet.news, and I have to double check what my Twitter handle is. That's how good I am at promoting myself. It's Julia at Julia_Doubleday.
Yeah. Okay. And that's in the Twitter post about it is there. And then that can link to the gauntlet.
Yes.
Your latest article is great, as have all of your articles been. Really appreciate your voice out here and also that you're sharing it with us in here. So thank you.
Thanks so much, you guys.
You're amazing. Many thanks for coming back. We'll see you later.
Cheers.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. She's amazing and so prolific. I mean, every week there's another great article out that sums up everything I'm thinking, but haven't been able to synthesize quite the same way, so definitely follow her. And I know, well, we can talk about, it's back in the news. So certainly there's, and Julia, if you're still, you can definitely feel free to take off. You don't have to wait back there. We won't be offended.
Yeah, I would leave immediately. Trust me. Don't worry about that. But no, what I love about Julia is like, I say all the things that she says, but I don't put facts behind them. I don't have the, read the article, but I'm not quoting it. I'm not putting numbers in front of people. And she does that in her article so well. Yeah. Go follow.
So yeah, she's fantastic. And, the reason, obviously, I mean, we always love having her on. It's absolutely still happening. Ridiculous that anybody would believe otherwise when here's the thing. Up until March, now that I was like, no, we say facts. And I'm like, March or was it May? But everybody who saw Biden had to test before seeing him, PCR test. And, I'm thinking about getting one, actually. I mean, it's crazy expensive, but I don't know how else to do this. There are home PCR tests. It's a really expensive first purchase. It's like $300. But then each test, I think, is $4. So long term, it will end up, because now I think, what is it, 2 for $25? If you can even find the test.
If you're regularly testing, it makes sense to do the PCR home testing now. I've looked into it too.
Yeah.
I'm not testing that often because I'm not exposing myself to people and I'm masking, and whatnot.
Right.
But I mean, it should be a habit. We all have that PCR test should come down to $20 and everybody should get it for free. I mean, this is how important it is to our economy, per Larry Summers, who says you can't put a price on it. I mean, we can control this if we actually did something crazy like that,
Well, and also it's, like all of these wealthy people who are like, oh yeah, no, it's asymptomatic, but I did test positive for COVID. It's like, so you all are testing every day, because otherwise how would you catch COVID? Like nobody else tests until they feel symptoms, right?
Yeah.
They are testing every day and they're still getting it over and over repeatedly, right? So, but now, I mean, this is what's so crazy. So not only did they say in this latest study, United States restrictions and excess COVID-19 pandemic deaths, basically the key points are the states where the restrictions were higher did much better. And if we had continued these more stringent protections, we could have spared an estimated, 118,000 to 248,000 more lives. That's a big spectrum there, but that's a lot of people.
Again, that's still just talking about people that died immediately from the acute effects of COVID.
Right. 100%.
Like if you put that number into how many people are disabled, and it's like, oh, we could have prevented 10 million people disabled in the US alone, probably. I mean,
exponentially
when we get to it.
It's a geometric progression. Yeah.
I do think we should spin this wheel so we can drink some more beer, because we need a pause and some lightheartedness.
Bring a little joy
to the rest of the COVID joy.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, baby.
Do we only have to? We have another timeline cleanse?
Oh, we got a pile of timeline cleanses.
All right.
In fact, I'm going to play the one that is entirely immature, just because we need a true timeline cleanse.
That sounds good. I'm pouring a second glass of wine.
How to achieve your dream. Visualize your goal. Make it happen. Enjoy the smell of success. Keep practicing. Don't give up. Believe in yourself.
that was? What's he doing?
He believed himself. Come on, he had a dream. It's the tablecloth with the
That's that guy.
next
Oh
level.
my God, that's so funny. That's
It's
hilarious.
next level.
You know, they say that the number one way to be successful is just be born a billionaire. Go out and do that.
That's actually true.
Be born a billionaire. So
let's get back to the serious stuff after
let's
the fart
get
joke.
back to a little bit. So now we have like a smattering of stuff because we're no longer allowed to do just like our second half as comedy because we keep getting shut down. So we have a few other things going on. Shocking to nobody is that they are going to start doing N95 masks and admission screenings in hospitals because it reduces hospital acquired infections. Little science right there. But the best news probably of the week, which we already touched on, John Fetterman getting a little piece of karma and
Spread that karma. Please spread
that karma. The only two Democrats who stayed late to shake hands with Netanyahu were Fetterman and Joe Manchin. So
we should have followed this chain to Kamala shaking Netanyahu's hand. That could have been the whole like circle. You know, let's see if this fuck around and find out happens. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. You know, the other thing on her like VP possibility list. So JD Vance, you know, did this ban on mask mandates. The people who voted with him to do a federal ban on mask mandates, Mark Kelly was one of the Democrats who voted with him. I think, is that the only person she's thinking about on this list? Tim Kaine, who has long COVID, for God's sakes. But anyway, Mark Kelly, who's against the PRO Act, anti-union, and pro mask banning mask mandates. I wish he had, you know, shaken hands and breathed in Fetterman's air as well.
We're not getting into the VP stuff much tonight, but Wednesday we will. But
yeah.
Look, as soon as she picks a VP, I think it's going to be a fuck you to the left, and it's gonna cause the divide. So, you know, we'll see.
I really do too. I saw somebody, Devin, say that you love Tim Walz. I do too. And Andy Bashir. Tim Walz had a great interview. I mean, should we just, it's not very long, but like he handled it the way he handled it the way everybody says Pete Buttigieg handles it, but he has the policies behind him that I think we on the left actually appreciate, which is really nice. So this was him on, I think, MSNBC.
How are you going to build a water treatment plant in a town of 400 if you don't have a collective effort at it? So I have to tell you, they scream socialism. We just build roads and we build schools and we build prosperity into this. Their whole plan is to go backwards, to give tax cuts to the wealthy. And look, it was so surprising. You know, these super successful Donald Trump, who inherited $400 million and then proceeded to fail at everything. Middle America, you earn it, but you know what? You're not on your own. Neighbors help neighbors. And I will, this one bothers me. I heard you talking about punching back at the bullies. They see people less fortunate as scapegoats and you know, punchlines for their jokes. We see them as neighbors. And I said it with my mom. My dad dies when my little brother's young. We're teenagers. We get Social Security survivor benefits. I'm all for pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. We didn't have any boots. Social Security was the boots, and we pulled ourselves up, and we paid that back. And I think J.D. Vance gets none of that. You know, it's the aw shucks, I'm from here or whatever. So my hillbilly cousins did not go to Yale, but I'll tell you what they did. They contributed to our community, and they're proud of it.
Look out for your neighbors. Stop being weird. The Governor Tim Walz way of politicking. We love to hear it. Thank you so much, Governor.
And that's why she'll never pick him.
I was gonna say, like, that alone just guaranteed donors were like, get him the fuck off this list.
Never gonna happen. Exactly. And you know, sorry, I'm looking at everybody's they're going to go to the battle box and demand nothing. They've already completely capitulated.
But like Tim Walz right there, he's saying, you know, did he say the word communism or socialist or something like that?
They call us socialist, but he's like, I'm not a socialist. We just do stuff for each other.
But it's killing me how the right is able to label Kamala Harris like a socialist communist. And you got Musk out there with his little graph with circles of Kamala being a hard left. And like she has the most progressive voting record in the
Oh my
Senate. And
God.
it's just nonsense. And because there was no primary, she's allowed to move to the right. So normally what happens is a primary, Democrats come out and make fake promises to the left to appease the left. And then the election comes and they're like, oh, I didn't mean all that. I'm really a centrist. I'm a Republican centrist. She gets to start as a Republican centrist.
That's right.
And she's gonna do that. She's not gonna pick a fake leftist.
No.
If she does, it'll be like a Buttigieg leftist, so you can lean on the
Ugh.
gay and the white, you know,
The
whatever.
identity politics kind of stuff.
I still think it's Buttigieg, but
I think you're right. I think it's going to be
don't know.
Buttigieg or Shapiro. Like she said in 2019 and 2020 she would ban fracking. Now she's already said absolutely not going to ban fracking. I just want to go back for a second to the other thing about COVID is, yes, the protections would have saved between 120 and 250,000 lives, and that's not even counting all of the long COVID. But the other thing, and they'll never say this, is Medicare for all. At the very early on, they knew it would have saved a third of the people who had died their lives, because we have done worse with our COVID response, COVID death rates, all of it, than any other country in the world.
Yeah. And Kamala's going to run on not supporting Medicare for all. I never said I supported Medicare for all. I had another plan. It wasn't that, you know, oh, the border, we tried to be as hard as Trump, but you guys wouldn't let us be as hard as Trump, you know?
She's despicable. The other thing she's doing, and this kills me, in her new ad, which is actually why, I mean, we pulled the ad. We didn't even show it. I don't know if you want to show it or not, but
the ad, did I see the ad? I don't.
Yeah, I put it up here. Should we just show it and then talk about it?
Yeah, show it. So I know what you're talking about. Because I'm not even sure what you're talking about.
All right, look at that. You're going to learn something, Pat.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us,
she told them not to come.
Something different.
Do not come. That's birth control right there. We choose
freedom.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Freedom,
fair use, Beyonce. Don't do it.
The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care.
Remember this
where
image.
No one is above the law. We believe in the promise of America, and we're ready to fight for it. Because when we fight, we win. So join us. Go to KamalaHarris.com and let's get to work.
I'ma keep on running because the winner don't quit on themselves.
If we didn't know her history, that's a great ad.
That's a great ad. But she's going to now co-opt "when we fight, we win." F off, Kamala, strike breaker.
No.
Leftist, like, know, throw them underneath the bus any chance she gets. But when I said, look at that image, that was a little girl with her surgical mask. It was what, like a half second? That That's what
brings us to.
Yeah, that's what got the guy.
Salt the vibes.
Yeah, don't salt the vibes. Who is that guy? Did you even know who he was? Wait, sorry.
Yeah, he's a Republican. He's a never Trumper. Your show. So he was a former Republican, I think, strategist, or at least right wing pundit.
He's got an MSNBC show, right?
Well, that's how you get an automatic MSNBC shows if you're a never Trumper. Right. But anyway, to read it, everybody's probably seen it. One minor quibble I didn't mention in the video: Democratic ad makers and news editors, please delete all B-roll of people in mass. Salts the vibes. Remember, we are not going back. We're not going back.
We never left.
protecting ourselves from a fucking pandemic. Yeah, we aren't going back to that. Apparently, that's the whole thing.
And I mean, honestly, like if he hadn't even written that, people might not have noticed. I mean, it was so quick. And you don't know, like, is that a child with cancer, or like, is nobody ever allowed to protect himself or herself? Like, what is this message that's so difficult? You know, Biden comes out after having COVID, like announcing that he's infected, no mask, getting out of the car with people driving him who have to, by the way, help him out. He's so fragile. Then he gets onto a plane with people, no mask. It's so insulting.
It is, but you know, I think I don't know that even him drawing attention to that issue wasn't intentional. Like they really want it. It's a sign to the right. Like we're not going back. Like don't attack us on masks. Don't attack us on mandates. Don't attack us on the border. Don't attack us on we're not going back is such a good strategy. I mean, PR wise, it's brilliant because you don't have to say what your vision is for the future. You put vague shit out there like she does, right. But not going back does highlight, abortion. But of course, who lost abortion rights for us? Who lost Roe v. Wade? You did.
And what's her big plan? What is her plan? Is she going to expand the court? Is she going to publish the ERA? I mean, there's so many different things that she could do.
Yeah, but not going back lets them hide behind whatever Trump's terrible vision is. We're just not that. We're not that. He wants to take us back. We're not that, which is good enough for most libs.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm scared. Honestly.
You what? What was the last thing you just said?
Scared she could win it.
I know. I mean, because she's attractive. Young. Like, yes, that's great. Let's call almost 60 young. And I'm fine with that. But like, everybody's just so pleased that she can barely put a sentence together she can do really well off a teleprompter or off a script.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad when she has an interview. And if anybody would ask, what is her vision? What are her policies? Does anybody care?
Yeah. Look, they are really going to try to hide her like she's Biden with dementia and run a PR campaign of commercials and shit like that. Like,
yeah. It's all vibes. It's just going to be the vibe candidacy.
It is totally vibes. Brat Kamala,
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Kamala is Brat. Charlie SCX. Thanks so much. Yeah. But no policies. I've not heard her talk about a single policy or a single way to address Project 2025. The Cop City are happening now. Her saying that the protests were anti-Semitic and like that is happening now, burning the flag. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but what they're trying to do for as long as possible is they get her pundits out there speaking on her behalf. And after Biden, people are just so pleased it's not Biden, and they're going to ride that wave as long as possible to have her avoid talking. But her pundits are out there saying, because they're getting grilled on Palestine.
Yep.
And they're like, well, let's just leave her some space and we'll see. So they're not saying anything one way or another because it's all PR, and they're going to try to figure out what's the most pro-Israel stance I could possibly take and still win this thing.
Listen, they've already telegraphed to their AIPAC donors. She's got a softer approach on the suffering, but she is in lockstep with Biden with everything this administration has done. Here's the problem. She can't say that she's qualified, which they all are all about qualifications, which is such a weird thing. Like it's what they said about Hillary. It's like, what does that mean, qualified? Like, does it mean you made good decisions or just that you were like in proximity to power? But she can't take the 4 years that she's been serving under Biden as part of her qualifications if she then distances herself from all of his policies. So she is either unqualified because I disagree with all of these things and I was just standing there like a weak person with no agency, or I agree with all of that. Like, what is she doing?
Well, and that's exactly what they're doing for the next month before we actually get her out in the world, having to answer for some of this. They're trying to come up with which ones do we want to agree with, which ones we don't, what's our story for that, how do we spin this to the public in a way that, somehow you say the right things to people, even though we know you're never going left. But like,
That's enough for most
it's the
normie
optimal way to
Dems.
do this.
Yeah, most normie Dems just don't want the mean tweets. They do. If you tell
And
them, yeah,
I will say, sorry to interrupt,
that's good.
but I was just at my folks, and my mom, who is a staunch Hillary person, we used to fight over Hillary and all that stuff. She is like, I fucking hate Kamala so much to my core, and
Is
it's
she a
because
racist? No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
yes, a little. No, she's not actually. Not
I'm
even
joking.
drop.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
But she, I mean, she was a judge, and she knows people that worked with her,
Right.
and she has stories about that, and she knows. Surprisingly, she knew as much as I did, and had some personal stories
Right.
to add to it about her terrible record. So,
I mean,
this is a person who was like,
yeah,
my mom would be like, "Hey, I want to elect a woman."
Yeah.
Still, and that's why Hillary is still a sore spot, but that doesn't transfer to Kamala,
well,
which
Hillary
I thought
was
was
right about
really
everything.
interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Which is also why she had so little support, real support among Black and brown people, because, like, yes, the wealthy, privileged people who were in her sorority and, like, you know, go to the same parties love her, but they know that she kept people in jail who were up for parole because she wanted cheap labor, that people who had exonerating proof of their innocence, she hid that until she was forced to let the defense use that information. I mean, she
covered up for the Catholic priests. She laughed about smoking weed while she was incarcerating people for marijuana offenses. The list goes on. And, you know, normie Dems don't really know that now because they got a taste of it in the primaries in 2020. And they're like, oh, fuck her. And that was enough. So like everyone was just like, we don't have to say anything else. She's gone.
Yeah.
You know, but like when she starts sniffing the actual presidency, all this is going to come out, and she's going to run on, like I said, she's going to be tough on crime. Like what the left used to hate her for, she's going to lean into because she doesn't give a shit. She doesn't need progressive votes. She doesn't have to pretend to be progressive to get out of a primary.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think Trump will debate her?
Yes, I 100%.
I do too, because he knows she's awful.
Look, the people saying there won't be a debate, I'm sorry, and my mom was one of them too, you know, but you can't not debate. Trump would look too weak. It's impossible to not debate. He can get through a debate with her. I'm not saying she might not even win the debate,
right?
You know, I mean, she's not good at debates, but she might be able to win the debate. But even Trump can't losing the debate. He can still get enough zingers out to appeal to his people.
Right.
So he's not going to look weak. Like looking weak would be more harmful than, you know, and they have the media on the right to spin a win for him no matter what happens as well. So it's like, he's going to debate.
Do you think he's going to get rid of JD Vance? No.
Again, that would be him looking weak.
Yeah.
He's never going to say, I made a bad choice. He made the best decision on earth.
Maybe, but he could also say, you're fired. Like, remember was it Joe Biden that he said, have you ever fired? That he said to, have you ever fired anybody? You've never fired anybody? Like, he used that, like that was some big point of strength that he had, remember?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he
guess,
is the least popular VP.
Look,
since they started doing it.
He could say, I read about the couch fucking, you're fired. You know, he could do it and get away with it, but I don't see it happening. It's super unlikely in my opinion.
All right. So I just wanted to quickly go through how it's going over at the Olympics, which is currently happening. They decided they are going to, it's post-pandemic. They're going to return to normal for athletes and fans. That went well. 2024 Paris Olympics hit by early COVID cases. Organizers don't seem worried by the risk. Face masks not required inside the Olympic Village. Hand sanitizer, I know we already talked about this, is available in clinics and restaurants. If you breathe through your hands, that might work. So this was really sad to me because this was the team, the Australian water polo team, who showed up.
We're masking. Yeah.
In masks. You cannot do it if you're the only ones doing it and you're just surrounded by people. But now there are volunteers for the staff, for the Olympic staff, who are resigning because of the lack of measures. This basketball star whose name I don't even know, but probably other people do. Do you know his name? No.
No, I haven't followed.
No, I have no idea. But like that, that's going to be a problem. Other athletes are now saying like they can't, like I think they're not doing figure skating. Gymnast, I don't know, was saying that she finished her competition and like can barely see straight. What are we doing?
Look, you've got the public is in tight quarters for these events. That's the biggest thing. You're in massive long lines to get into these events, and then you're they pack it as full as possible, right? So they're super spreading, right? And then you've got all the athletes around each other. They're living in dorms with 4 people to a room. They're super spreading.
Yep.
It's everywhere. I mean, the travel advisories now, there's like 5 countries in Europe you're not supposed to go to already per the WHO. Like,
that's
be
right.
warned, COVID's everywhere. So
Portugal
of course Paris is going to
really
top the
bummed me.
list.
Yeah.
Paris is going to be the top of the list.
Yeah.
Should we spin the wheel? We only have so many things.
Definitely. Okay.
Get some joy in our life.
All right. Why
even
would
if
you
it's a
want
fart
joy,
video.
Pat? What are you talking about? Joy.
We haven't had a. I mean, not that we're doing shots.
I know, but I mean, I just keep my class is never empty. Another timeline 10. All right, I'm going to add some more.
Okay, take that one off though. I think we'll move on after that.
I'm removing it.
This fits.
This is life in late-stage capitalism. I wake up at 8 a.m. and immediately get hit with my morning thoughtvertisement.
Drink Shaboinky juice. Half the calories, twice the Shaboink.
I then fight my 8 roommates for space. Since Zillow now owns 100% of homes, this is our only option for living. For breakfast, my duplicate brings me my morning ration of trough slop, 100% processed. Then I go to my job as a full-time plasma donor. To pass the time, I watch my favorite 24/7 live streamer.
Yo, it's Dystopian, and today we're gonna be siphoning memory from a duplicate. Hopefully there's something good. Oh, childhood trauma. That's whack.
Just then, world-famous lonely hand model Mimi Moneybags walks in. Looks like she's doing a make-a-wish for a 36-year-old man dying of diabetes.
I can't believe I'm meeting you IRL. Can I use my last memory unit on you?
How pathetic.
She makes 15,000 gallons a year. That's a lot of water. Figuratively selling your body makes so much more than literally selling it. Then my girlfriend leaves me because I couldn't make my monthly girlfriend subscription payment.
You need to start donating more plasma.
I'm already donating the legal limit.
Well, why don't you just siphon some from your duplicate?
Maybe I should become a live streamer and move into Zillowville. Then I could probably afford a premium girlfriend and only need 3 roommates. Then I download Sleep Premium so I don't get hit with any dream advertisements. And that's my day.
That about sums it up for sure. Jeez, Louise.
Thank you, Meme Girl. Meme Girl does all the heavy lifting every
I know
single
she
time.
really does. It's excellent.
I love her.
All right. What else do we have? Oh, I do think because we're going back to COVID. And by the way, I did refill my glass. Do you have another beer? How are you doing?
Fresh beer.
Okay, good. So travel warnings. They say, wait, I'm just looking because there was a statistic in here that's so crazy. Anyone going on holiday to Greece, Portugal, and other EU countries. Okay. Malta
400% increase.
Yeah. 400% increase. In Portugal, the number of cases recorded surged by 700% between May and June. I mean,
and I believe this is where we need Julia back because I'm just going to make shit
say any fact. 99% of people. No, go ahead.
No, but I think they were saying in Paris, I think they were at 4 times the COVID cases of last year at this time or something.
Yeah. Yes. In that article that was talking about the
something
in
like
the
that.
WHO. Yeah.
And that's like before everyone comes to town and is all hugging each other for the next month.
Inside, indoors with no masks. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And look, honestly, I love the Olympics. I normally follow it pretty closely. I think it's a great principle of bringing everyone together. It's just you're getting everybody sick. They have to find a way to do this. I mean, but with the world pretending the pandemic doesn't exist, I understand it's asking a lot, but it's just it's it's a Taylor Swift concert 10 times at the same time in a city.
Yeah.
Every day for a month.
Every day. And yeah, and hotels, all of that. Kimmy, you never have to apologize for cussing. And yes, they did. They trained their whole lives. And then wait, I'm just seeing Justin saying that wasn't a timeline cleanse. That was nightmare fuel, which is being echoed by Lauren. That was the opposite of a timeline cleanse because it is just so like dead on.
I feel like that's calling for a timeline cleanse.
Oh, right. And somebody's asking for Runs is asking for puppets, but okay, go ahead.
I'm going puppets, but I'm
Okay.
sticking with the Olympics. You might cry at the end of this story.
No.
Our Jayla Washington introduces us to Beacon, the therapy dog.
How are you? Such a good boy.
A certified credentialed staff member for USA Gymnastics, even sporting a custom bandana with the Olympic rings.
You're such a good boy.
Beacon the therapy dog is the official goodest boy of the Olympic trials.
That's his title.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes if we don't see people reacting, we hear them reacting. We hear a gasp, and that's usually his cue. Oh, remember.
He's a member of pet therapy for USA Gymnastics. It's a partnership that started a little over a year ago.
You can take it. One of the gymnasts last night suggested that the CHO would be appropriate, the Chief Happiness Officer. Talk about it. It helps. It's a healthy distraction. Gets their mind off of the intensity of the stress of their competition.
And how does it work? Do the athletes just snuggle with him and rub on him, I guess, before they compete?
It depends on the event sometimes. So we create what we call a wellness room.
This week, Beacon has been spotted on and off the competition floor with 2020 Tokyo Olympian Sumi Lee. There is 2024 Olympic alternate Ko Yang and Shalish Jones, who got hurt the first day of competition and had to pull out of the meet. Two others, Kayla DiCello and Sky Blakely, were also injured and unable to compete. And that is something that's weighed on everyone.
Been a few of the athletes that since these injuries have occurred, they're reaching out to Beacon more.
His simple presence going a long way.
I do feel emotional talking about it now because helping these gymnasts aim towards their dream or achieve their dream.
In Minneapolis,
making me happy.
I'm Jayla Washington.
That's really sweet. I hope they don't give that sweet boy COVID.
I was going to say, spoiler alert, he's got COVID. Beacon has been spreading COVID to everyone who needed a hug.
God.
Everyone who needed a hug has COVID.
So Comic-Con just ended out here. Josh and I were supposed to go. He goes every year. It's down in San Diego. It's absolutely not my thing, even without COVID. You know, it's like packed convention center and people are dressed up as their favorite comic book heroes or whatever the hell characters. And then you wait in long lines to sign autographs. You know, it's just all that kind of stuff. And then the other part of it is it's a lot of like hobnobbing and schmoozing at night at different parties. And because of a lot of different travel stuff, we couldn't go. And we were supposed to meet our mutual dear friend, Tina, there. And she had some parties already lined up and we couldn't go anyway because of our own family stuff. But also like all I would be doing where I'm supposed to be like hobnobbing and schmoozing with a mask indoors, sweaty, gross, crowded, while everybody's looking at me like I'm the asshole for wearing a mask, and Josh also. So we didn't go, but I just saw today Comic-Con finally back to normal after years of setbacks. How great for them. Back to normal.
That worked out great, right? Yeah. I'm sure it worked out great.
Just today, will this be San Diego CoronaCon? Comic creators come down with COVID. So they're isolating in their rooms.
It will be, and we should actually share that hashtag and shame. I mean, look, I don't want to shame people, but like anything that draws attention to mass events being COVID spreaders is good because people need to know the risk, and our government is not telling you the risk.
But they'll just say it's not that big a deal. So what? So I've had it 4 times. It's fine. And again, I keep thinking like when people say, like when they start sniffling or whatever, and they're always just like, oh, it's just allergies. It's just a cold. If COVID weren't a big deal, you would say, oh, it's nothing. It's just COVID. Nobody says that because they know COVID is a big deal. Nobody's like,
Yeah.
nope, oh, it's nothing. It's just COVID. It's ridiculous. Shout out to the people who are still wearing masks. Paul McCartney. Yep. Timothy Chalamet has been really good all along. I'm not sure why he's not asking the people traveling with him to show some solidarity. Jennifer,
That's kind of
Aniston-
interesting because, well, I was just going to say the normally what you see is the behind the scenes people and the staff is all wearing a mask, but the actors aren't, which makes sense because you have to, be speaking and whatnot. And
it really doesn't. So that's what we're seeing in this picture, which is Jennifer Aniston just shared. And I don't know when this picture is from, but she just shared it on her Instagram. And, Morning Show got a bunch of Emmy nods and everything. And I don't know if you can see, but she's not wearing a mask, as you said. And there's somebody there who I can't tell if that's another actress or what, wearing a mask. And then there's another one with a lot of people wearing a mask backstage. This is often the morning show.
Right.
And I saw some people say like, oh, that's so typical. Like the famous people don't want the plebes, virus air, bad air or whatever. But that's, I don't think on sets, I don't think that's exactly what's happening. It's that you can't have every actor on screen wearing a mask always. I mean, I think they should do much more of that. And actually, the morning show is one of the few shows that has had storylines that have revolved around COVID.
I've never even heard of it.
I loved the first season.
Is it good?
It was the first season was excellent, and then I think I tapered off after the second season. Actually, I loved the first two seasons, and I think they've just finished their third. But they definitely, that and Swagger are the only two shows, movies, anything where I've seen any allusion to a global pandemic. But like even when they're like they've just memory hold the whole thing.
Well, I just want to say, unrelated to this, but sort of related to this, good news, Broad City, people loved that show. I actually really liked that show until they went all in on Hillary. But they're coming back to do one episode to hype up Kamala Harris. So kill yourself before you see that, please. I mean,
that's really sad, especially because I just saw a movie. Wait, I'm looking at Still Masking. Way to go. I see Justin say that. Josh, does that mean that they did Masks in Troll 2? I didn't see it.
I thought he was saying he was trolling.
It could be.
Josh, stop trolling.
Yeah. I mean, remember when they used to say protect other people, and now they don't even tell you to protect yourself. It's crazy. Broad City, one of the women from that, Alana Glazer, right?
Sure.
Well, she's in a movie by Pamela Adlon, who was on I mean, she's been in a million things, but
you're too Hollywood for me. I have no idea.
All right. Anyway, just did a movie that was great about two best friends who like getting pregnant and how they, deal with all of that. And they talk about a genocide, and they're all Jewish, or at least Pamela Adlon, the director writer, is Jewish, and Alana Glazer, Jewish. And in the movie, they refer to a genocide that's happening right now. So the fact that she's going to get behind somebody who is going to continue these policies is just,
it's amazing. And her politics were so great before endorsing Hillary, but I mean, it was the Go Team Women thing. I mean, whatever. I don't want to relitigate that, but you're making me by bringing up Kamala Harris. This show is coming back just to hype her shit up. That's killing me. And of course, like you said, she's Jewish and not an ally of Israel in this situation. And she's still going to hype up Kamala.
I just don't understand. So then what is that? It's like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with everything. It's the same thing with climate. It's the same thing with COVID. When a Democrat is doing it, it's fine, which is why the harm reduction accelerationist candidate are not who we were told, right? Like on many levels, Biden got done so many of the policies that we're supposed to worry about with Trump, right? Whether it's oil drilling, whether it's deportations, whether it's the border bill, money for cops, 2 more wars, a genocide, like, and
But we're not going back to masking or protecting ourselves
and
or
that's what, like,
demanding
Biden
air
did what
quality
Trump couldn't do,
protections.
right? Biden got liberals to say, go back to normal and it's all fine. He got liberals to accept the Koch brother, Blackstone Institute, let it rip.
Yep.
I'm the cheery half of this show.
Oh, are you? Good.
All
I'm
right.
the making up fact.
Yeah.
What do you got? Is that a wrap, or are we moving on
I
to
don't
something
know.
else?
I mean, I mean, I've got other things, but we can. This was actually okay. This is like talking about the whole. This is the Olympics and the genocide. This is where they meet. Just a short clip. We were going to use this as cheers, and then Julia was here, so we wanted to make sure we got her on. But this was backstage at the Olympics, turning this. I think he's a Brazilian soccer fan.
Oh
into an anti-Zionist in 45 seconds flat.
And what do you think about the game?
I thought it was a good game. I thought in the beginning Israel was better, but now Mali is is destroying them. I think Israel is not bad. Israel is not bad, but I think Mali is going to destroy them today. No, I'm just talking about football. I'm just talking about football.
Mali the best, no politic here. Okay?
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Back you!
Mais vous les sortir, c'est des enculés. Comment on dit enculés? Franck culo.
I mean,
good for him.
That was like such a quick 180. No. Israel's good. It's fine. I'm not talking politics. You know what, buddy? Fuck you.
I feel that to so many of us feel that to our
Yeah.
core, I think. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
I don't know, Pat. Is that it? Did we do it?
Was that a show? Was that it?
I mean,
okay, I'm looking at what we got. We got JD Vance stuff. We got.
We can get into that probably on Wednesday when we talk about the Veep stakes, right?
Just on the Olympics, I do want to say this was a poster floating around, captured in Paris, and I appreciated this.
When it comes to killing for sport, there's no competition. Yep. I mean, boy, the videos are, it's just every day. And I know we'll talk about this more on Wednesday, but they're going to talk about a group of kids in Lebanon getting hit. Hezbollah says it was not them. It looks like from the trajectory, it was probably a missile from the Iron Dome. It's horrible. No matter who did it, it's horrible because children were killed. And civilians, like innocent people, killed. Israel right away is saying it was Hezbollah and how dare they, and children's lives are sacred. Meanwhile, every day we are seeing them blowing up hospitals, blowing up, tent encampments, blowing up kids playing soccer. Until this past October, I had never seen a child without a head before. And I've seen more than I can even count at this point. And
so many things we've all seen that have traumatized us, like, and we've awoken traumas that people have already. But I will say, just to end on something positive, the Olympics is at least, it's highlighting some of this stuff in a way that some people can't avoid. So, they're going to see some of this. They're seeing the protests. Israel got booed on the soccer field.
Yes.
When their national anthem sang. The world is so clearly not supporting this. And the Olympics is one place everyone's coming together. So more people are going to see that the world is not supporting this. So,
yeah. And, Israeli athletes should not have been allowed to participate. I will say, and we didn't pull it today, but we'll pull it for Wednesday. But the ACLU has like 4 or 5, no, Amnesty International, sorry, 4 or 5 great posters about why, not about why, but making the case that genociders should not be permitted in what is supposed to be a coming together of nations.
Right.
They should.
I
not
mean,
be
Russia was banned. You know, I mean, it's like,
yeah.
Does the U.S. have so much stature in the world that only what we agree with the IOCC or whatever the Olympic
IOC,
Committee is? Do we rule them too, just like everything? Like, is that what it comes down to? But the world, they don't give a shit that look, Western decline is happening in front of us, and the Olympics are going to highlight some of that because they're going to be anti-Israel.
Yeah.
So, and they're anti-US as well.
And by the way, Cora, that's a really good point. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Can you imagine us getting banned from the Olympics? How much that would impact American comprehension of our place? And I mean, people in the US already get it, but like, we would have to be isolationist after that. Like, oh, fuck everyone who supports this move. And that's everybody in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think enough people do. And, you hear this thing of people saying, well, they shouldn't have voted for Hamas if they, if they don't want people to be that way. It's the same like lib thing of like, well, it's a red state. They shouldn't have voted for red people, or for Republicans. And meanwhile, now people are like, well, we'll vote for 99% Hitler.
Yeah.
Like,
And oh my God, just before we go, please, people, stop praising Kamala for saying she called for a ceasefire in that speech.
She
attacked protesters. She's denying it. And Biden has also called for a ceasefire. So that means it's not a divergence whatsoever from his policy. It's all PR.
It's just messaging.
I'm not saying she might not go more left because she wants to get elected. So she's going to put out a little bit leftier position, but like, don't let the rhetoric sway you on what's actually happening. It's just bullshit rhetoric until we see something.
Yeah. And we're not going to, because she's already like in bed with the crypto guys. Like, she's all money. That's the whole reason that she is there, is because billionaires know that she will do exactly what they want her to do. So nobody should confuse her slightly less mean tweets with not actively participating in a genocide. All right. You guys are awesome. Julia Doubleday, thank you for joining us today. You were fantastic. So appreciate all of your knowledge. And we are going to go out on this is amazing. This is what got me permanently banned from Twitter. I protested every day for like 2 weeks and finally got myself reinstated when I said we need to bring the French Revolution back. But apparently, when you're in Paris, vive la révolution. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers to the French and everyone fighting, and all of you. And thank you, Julia. See you next. See you Wednesday.
Cheers. Keep punching up.